Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Ferrari F40. Let's get into it. The Ferrari F40 has a wide stance, which makes it very stable on the track, but the power causes wheel spin, which frequently results in slides. This inclination to drift is controllable and can be used to our advantage when we get used to them. However, they can also be deadly when they occur without warning. The handling is very reliable once we learn the quirks of driving the F40 hard. It is prone to slides at higher RPM, so save the full throttle action for straight lines, and while in corners, short shift for best results. The steering works well when we have traction. There is plenty of grip, and this Ferrari turns well when cornering. The power delivery is brilliant. There's lots of pickup on throttle and a steady scream as we make our way through the rev range. The power delivery is awesome until it hits higher RPM. In this area, the tail can step out aggressively and it will be lethal if not managed correctly. The brakes are extremely solid. The wide stance is an asset and we slow down quickly and effectively. However, this is only when braking in straight lines. Braking while turning is a surefire way to end up with a world of understeer, so make sure to get all braking done before we turn in to corners. Let's collect our time. (7 minutes 13.4 seconds). And now, the race tune. The first thing to note on the tune for this F40 is that the wheels are 19 inches and we have anti-lag set to weak. The next thing to note is that the front-rear weight balance is absolutely horrible. Even with ballast of 140 kilos at a ballast positioning of -23, it does still feel like the balance is off. We did have to do quite a bit of tinkering to get this right, so let's see how it performs back out on the Nürburgring. This F40 was an absolute mess when we first started driving it. It took some creative jujubes to make the tune work. The tail just loved to kick in all conditions, when braking hard especially and compression braking. It was also extremely aggressive on throttle and the weight balance was not doing us any favours. Fortunately, it is now much more well-rounded and most of the issues have been made manageable. The handling is mostly good. It can get understeery when the nose gets light, be it bumps, curbs, or even the road peaking. If the road gets even mildly treacherous, be prepared to deal with understeer. The steering works reasonably well. It is consistently grippy, considering the extra weight over the front to balance the car. This makes the front end much more pointed while in turns. The power upgrades have worked wonders for our speed, but it has also amplified the peaky nature of the engine at the top end. The power delivery is now at a reasonable level. However, it is still aggressive if we are a brute on the throttle. It's best practice to squeeze on and off the throttle to maintain stability and traction. The brakes are okay, but they can cause the tail to step out when braking hard for longer periods of time. High-speed braking should be done in stages if the tail gets loose. This means we'll have to adjust brake markers as is needed. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes 3.8 seconds. And now the drift tune. The main thing to note for our drift tune is that we have switched off anti-lag. The remainder of our tune has been made more aggressive, however, we have ensured our tune did not upset the balance of this F40. Let's drift Suzuka. The Ferrari F40 is more of a precision drift car. It can be thrashed and thrown about, however, it prefers calculated drift with smooth inputs and finite adjustments. The handling is incredibly stable and provides precise movements on track. The steering is sharp yet firm and feels like it's on rails most of the time. The power available is more than capable of cooking the tail end, and does so quite frequently. The power delivery is very smooth throughout the rev range. However, if we rev out hard in higher gears, wheel speed becomes an issue, which can lock the front wheels, preventing us from being able to transition our drift when we want to. The Ferrari F40 is a reliably accurate drift car if we drive it correctly. However, this relies on us having the self-control necessary to not be excessive on inputs, especially the throttle. And now it's time for an engine swap. The engine swap does not feel too far out of place in this Ferrari F40. It has changed the dynamic of the vehicle, but it is drivable and can even be pushed somewhat hard. As is the case with most engine swaps, the handling has gotten a bit sloppy. It is far more boatish, bobbing and swaying all over the track, but at least it's usable. The steering itself has quite a lot of understeer when on throttle more than 50%. The power comes on nice and clean and winds out through the gears steadily. But power delivery is aggressive enough to cause problems if we do not manage our inputs correctly. The tail is prone to stepping out, coupled with the understeer issue, and we have a recipe for going off-road. Slides are not pleasant, but they can be controlled well enough if we plan appropriately and use caution when they occur. The brakes are okay, though a bit slow to respond as well as sloppy. However, they are definitely stable and usable. Let's collect our time. Seven minutes 4.9 seconds. And now the race tune. The F40 with the engine swap was easier to balance than the non-engine swapped version. That being said, we still had to use a considerable amount of unorthodox methods to get this vehicle to race nicely. In particular, our differential was nerfed quite a bit to make sure we could get power to the ground and maintain traction. Let's head back out to the Nürburgring. The Ferrari F40 with the engine swap completely modified and tuned can be driven fast, however, it is not without its quirks and moodiness. The handling is brilliant when we are being calculated with our inputs. If we push too hard or are too heavy-handed, we will experience a world of understeer. However, when we drive properly, the steering works extremely well and guides the car around the track with much gusto. There is lots of power available and it hits strong and quickly, which can unsettle this Ferrari. The power delivery comes on too aggressively. This causes the tail to kick, when we lose traction, and understeer when we hook the rear tyres. A good dose of throttle modulation is absolutely necessary to ensure we maintain control. The brakes do have some issues. While they slow us down well in straight lines, they cause massive understeer that runs us incredibly wide while braking in turns. And if we enter turns while braking, we should expect that the tail will step out on us aggressively. Let's collect our time. (6 minutes, 1.7 seconds). And now the drift tune. Once again, we have tried not to unbalance the Ferrari F40 when tuning for drift. While we added extra ballast, we also adjusted the ballast positioning to try and maintain our balance. We also had to nerf our differential further to make sure the tail end didn't spin right around. Let's drift Suzuka. The Ferrari F40 with the engine swap is a super responsive drift car. Both the steering and throttle are extremely attentive and have a high potential to get away from us in a flash, so use caution on both. The handling is quite sensitive to all inputs. This is a double-edged sword that we need to come to grips with and should handle with care. The steering is sharp and pointed, and while it can seem a bit janky to begin with, once we get used to how it responds to our inputs, we can be deadly accurate with car placement on track. The power available is nice and crisp. It comes on strong and in an instant when we hit the go button. The power delivery is aggressive but well within our ability to control. We can bounce off the limiter and be safe in our drift. However, in the higher gears, wheel speed can lock the front wheels, making it hard to bring the drift back. The F40 with the engine swap is an advanced drift car that requires some discipline and tact to drift well, but is rewarding when we get it right. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!